Welcome back, everyone, for yet another campaign diary. As always, I'm Dragon Lord Jonic, also Peter, also God for this exercise. And when last we left our heroes, they had been clearing out the Temple of Elemental Evil. They had routed the cultists. They had destroyed all four towers, and they had confronted the cleric in his ritual chamber, battling him and his two lieutenants, Master Lareth and the paladin Aluza, along with a couple elementals, in this race against time to stop the portal from opening. Of course, the cleric was trying to open up this portal to allow the uncontrolled and raging chaos of the elements free into this plane. However, they were able to kill the cleric, Master Lareth, his elementals, and they had knocked Aluza out, basically. However, they were unable to do this in time, and the portal, seeming to close, began to pull them in. Now, when this happened, I had them all roll strength saves. And I set the DC pretty high because I knew this was kind of a plot point. If they failed, they were going to get sucked into the portal. And I wanted to still give them a chance that they could succeed. That way, it didn't feel like we have to be pulled in. That way, it gives them still a sense of player agency if they at least have to make a roll for it. And I said high, about 22, maybe it was 23. I knew that for most characters, they're going to have to roll at least a 19. A couple of them would have to roll a 20. I think Garza managed to actually make her save. Being a fighter, she has, proficiency to strength save, so she rolled like a 16 or 17 and was enough to save. Everyone else got pulled in. And I talked to Sonya and said, hey, Sonya, if you want, you can hang on. You can make a new character where they're going, or you can let go and go with the rest of your party. And she's like, nah, sure, I'll let go. I see all my friends, and I'll let go and join them in the portal. And so Garza went in. The entire party was sucked in along with like Aluza and the corpses of the cleric and Master Lareth. They're all sucked into this portal, this vortex, this blinding kind of white and blue and this spinning. They can't see anything. It's just sickening. And as it fades away, that would be a cat. Hi, Hungry. That'd be my cat who's hopping down from her resting place right behind those books there. They kind of come to, they find themselves on a beach, with a vast ocean in front of them. And I think they all kind of knew what was going on. But Aluza, who kind of comes to, just smiles and looks at them and says, welcome to the plane of water. At which point, Arilla just picks up Aluza's axe and executes him. I'm done with you. Of course, the party's like, all right, so we're on the plane of water. That's not the end of the world. We just got to figure out how to get home. They decide, let's try and find civilization. They start by saying, let's build a raft. Let's try and build some sort of makeshift raft that we can survive on. So, there were trees on the island. I didn't make it like just a dune in the water. I gave it trees and resources, and thus through a skill challenge, primarily using survival, they managed to build a decently sized raft. I think I said it was about 8 feet by 8 feet, pretty large. They could all fit fairly comfortably on it with a mast, and they managed to kind of make a very kind of makeshift sail using kind of the branches, kind of the palm leaves. I had a very kind of stereotypical desert island, so thus they had kind of palm trees on it, and they managed to find some food. There were a little bit of game there, the fruits of the trees and such. They knew this was not going to be like a long distance sailing, but they're hoping, okay, maybe we can at least find either a boat, like an actual ship passing by, or we can find another island or something, hopefully without too much trouble, and this raft will do the purpose. They set sail. Osborne has skills in cartography and navigation, so Osborne was able to kind of lead the way and kind of just say, okay, we're going to go this way, and making sure we're on course. They did their best to go. They did run into a small storm. The waves kind of picked up and such, and they had to make some strength saves and such, see if they fall out. I believe Kiko did fall off the raft, and they had to wrap a line around someone and dive in and grab him and pull him back, which I didn't want to make it too difficult. I just wanted to, again, give that sense of oceans are dangerous. But they keep going, and at one point they do spot in the distance, sure enough, a ship kind of coming towards their way, roughly. So they turn the boat, and they're turning their raft, and they start sailing towards it. And then as they near the ship, they hear like "Hello there," and they're like, "Oh, we seek safe passage. Come aboard." And the line gets thrown over, and they all climb up onto the ship, and they're met by this giant, rotund fish person. I mean, and he is floating in the air. He's got this little kind of like what should be kind of his legs or something are just like this small little vortex of water. He looks like he's got a big belly and basically a giant kind of fish slash frog for a face, and he just talks like this, and it's like, "Welcome to my ship. I am Captain Gwillock." And they discussing it, they explain that, hey, we were on the material plane and we've been pulled in. Gwillock responds, "That is not unheard of. The plane of water does at times open up portals to the other side." Kind of, I figured, kind of fun to give him just a completely different way of speaking, almost just this, rather than doing accents or dialects or something like that, just talk like you. Like I've got almost like some sort of ball in my mouth. And the players were didn't have a huge effect, but it just added just a little sprinkle of something. The captain, they agree with the captain that they'll help kind of around the ship if he will provide them passage to their next port. The captain's like, "Hey, we're already on our way to a city, so we'll bring you with us, no problem. You just have to help out." And the party is absolutely down for that. So, and of course, Osborne has spent some time on ships and is aware of kind of how things run. Everyone else is fairly down for it. Garza, though, being completely afraid of water, was a dead weight this entire time. They had to drag her onto the raft. They had to tie her to the mast of the raft. At this point, Aurelio had to basically try and haul her up the rope up onto the ship. Same thing once they were on the ship. They just stuck her below deck and gave her a bucket to puke in constantly. And that was basically what Garza was doing this entire time. Meanwhile, they continue forth. They make, without really too much difficulty, there's some rough seas, but nothing they can't handle. They do make it to a port city, and they get in there and they decide, okay, let's try and figure out who's in charge here. Let's talk to kind of the authorities and see what we can do. And they talk to Gwillock, and he kind of points to this giant, kind of pinkish orange building that's standing kind of above the rest. The city is kind of built up this slight hillside, so they can kind of see most of the city. And sure enough, they can see this building. He explains, "That is the authoritative building. That is where you will find what you are looking for." The players are like, okay, they're down. So they just start walking through. They kind of have to keep looking over buildings, trying to see if they can find it through the roof, through the skyline and rooftops. But along the way, one of the things that happened is as they are walking through a street, the ground starts to rumble. And seemingly in the middle of the street just erupts this geyser of flames. It just knocks them all back. Incinerates actually a passerby, a just random stranger, and then just disappears. And the players are like, okay, that was weird. And everyone, of course, all the citizens are all kind of freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, one, someone's just died. And two, what the heck happened? This never happens. What is going on here? People are talking maybe, that maybe the Nine Hells are coming or something like that. Maybe the Plane of Fire is coming or something like that. People are kind of freaking out. And the players kind of log that away, just say, okay, we're just going to keep going. And they make it to the building, to this pinkish orange building. When they get there, they realize the building is made entirely out of coral. And I thought that was kind of fun. So they get in there, and sure enough, they come into this. They're led into this chamber where there are 3 more of these fish, these rotund fish creatures. Danny rolls a history check, realizes, oh, those are Marid. They're basically water genies. They get in line, and there's this long queue of people waiting to talk to them, waiting to ask them for favors and bring up concerns and such. As they get in line, and they kind of, said there, gave them a chance to just kind of talk for themselves. And I just said, okay, you guys spend about 2-3 hours in line just waiting. There's a group of dwarves in front of you who are kind of just chit-chatting. And they kind of talk to you a little bit, and you guys said oh, okay, that's cool. And they get up to the Marid, and these 3 Marid, and they explain their situation. We're from the material plane. We want to get home. Can you help us? And the Marid kind of look at each other, and they kind of say, we cannot help you, but we know of a higher-up who can. However, if you want to meet them, we have a problem that we need taken care of. We are experiencing difficulties as there have been raids on caravans traveling from the plane of Earth to here. They are getting attacked in the plane of ooze, and we wish for you to investigate and take care of the problem. We shall provide a ship to carry you to such, and when you return, we will take you to our higher up. And the party's like, okay. They kind of sit there and discuss. Now, one thing I realized I just forgot to mention is when they were on Captain Guilek's ship, they saw it was kind of a ragtag crew already. It was mostly these kind of short little fist people who were crazy. Like, they would just go, I mean, they're talking another language, but they're like basically shouting the whole time. There was a half-orc they saw there. There was another elf they saw there. There was a dwarf who they kind of started talking to. He was a pretty sociable person. His name was Soak. He kind of chats up with them, and when they explained, hey, we're from the material plane, he's like, oh, so am I. And I've been trying to get back. He explains that, the half-orc and elf are also from there. They come at their own times and such, but they're happy to stay here. I want to stay. I want to go home. I'm from Cleric. And the party's like, oh, we've been to Cleric. And he's like, yeah, I'm from Tet. And they're like, we've been to Tet. We actually helped the new chief arise. And he's like, oh, cool, that's awesome. Hey, so maybe I could come with you guys, and you guys could help me get home. And they're like, absolutely, come on. Come along with us. So Soak's with them, and as they're kind of discussing, hey, do we want to take up their offer? Is that going to help us? Soak kind of pipes up. He's like, hey, one thing we could do is we could also go to the city of Brass and the Plate of Fire. It's a bit of a trek, but it's guaranteed to have something to help us there. And the parties are like, yeah, let's go to the city of Brass. That sounds awesome, actually. They actually, rather than going back to the Marine, they decided, let's go. They weren't a huge fan of the Marine. The Marine did kind of talk down to them a little bit. Clearly kind of using their rank, their authority as a way of kind of saying, hey, we're better than you and we're going to talk down to you. You guys are beneath us. And so the party was a little frustrated with them. And so they're like, yeah, screw you guys. We'll go do our own thing. So they said, yeah, sure. We'll take them up their offer. We'll take the ship. We'll go ahead. We'll clear out the stuff on the way over. And then we'll just let the ship go back. See, I don't know exactly how other people might do it, but for me, I envisioned the planes as kind of on this wheel. And thus, the plane of water can, if you look at the map, it's kind of drawn in this circle. And I envisioned that, yeah, sure enough, you can basically walk all the way around the planes of existence. They're long trips, it's going to take you a while, but it can be done. There are certain parts which are more difficult to traverse than others. I mean, for instance, you have to sail across the plane of water. The plane of air is really difficult, so you have to basically fly through all of that. There's a great conflagration, basically this giant field of fire in the plane of fire, and the only way you're going to get through that is to fly over it. But that's just it. You can go around physically, so that's what they're like. Yeah, we'll just walk, go to the city of Brass. And so they say, hey, we'll take the ship, we'll go to the plane of Ooze, we'll clear out there, we'll go through the plane of Earth, and then work our way across to the city of Brass. No problem. And they were down for that. So that's what they did. They hop in the ship, they start sailing. There's a crew that basically, so they just have to worry about just, making it. Along the way, they do come into a storm, and this, Elias asked, is it a swirly storm or a story storm? And I'm still not entirely sure what that meant, but I just said it's a swirly storm. And they're like, oh, okay, so swirly storm. Okay, perfect. Elmoria decides to stand up on the mast and says, I want to get struck by lightning. So she climbs up to the top of the mast, just holds on as they're going through the storm. And there was lightning already. I had mentioned that. And that was what had sparked the idea in her. And I kind of just said, you know what? Screw it. You get struck by lightning. I think I said like 10d8 or something like that. I roll the damage. She's knocked down from like her roughly about 70 health to like 3 health. I mean, she's almost knocked unconscious in one hit, just natural rolling the dice. So they're like, okay, yeah, get off of there. They take her down. She rests, and she actually tried again, but the storm had dissipated enough that there wasn't lightning to strike. But they make it through that. That was memorable. And sure enough, they do arrive in this. They do arrive at this kind of marshy. The ocean starts kind of getting covered with little bits of moss and stuff. They kind of see little islands, little small kind of almost sandbars basically poking up, and they can sort of kind of see that maybe a mile off or so it starts turning into kind of just these wavy kind of marshy mass. And at that point the ship's captain basically says, okay, get in the lifeboat, get in the rowboat, and we'll row you the rest of the way. The ship's not getting any farther. And they climbed in, dragging Garza along the whole time, and they get in the boat, they row them, they step off into this marsh, the boat goes back, and they basically say, hey, see ya. They'd wanted to see if there was a way to take the ship with them, but they really could not conceive of any way to get a ship across land. Or, like, you know, they thought, okay, is there some way we can maybe magically, do we have anything that we could magically put it in? You know, like because they thought, oh, it'd be so cool to have a ship, which I was like, yeah, that would be cool, but you have no way of moving a ship. If you could come up with something, I'd be happy to give you guys a ship, but yeah. So they went on land, they start walking through this marshy, I mean, it's like when it's, you know, it's snowed and it's starting to melt and it's just this slush and you're just stepping through kind of that sucking sound as they kind of each step of their boots and they march their way across and they're really not happy. At nights they try and find like the biggest kind of dry patch they can to set up camp. It's really kind of miserable, but they're like, hey, we're making progress. That's good. And so they continue. It's this kind of long trek as they're trying to figure out what's going on. They spend about 3-4 days, and then I just said, you know what? Roll a d12. You know, as they roll in d12s for random encounters, they roll 12, and I just unleashed this swarm of oozes upon them. I figured they're in this swamp. It's nicknamed the Plain of Ooze. Let's fight some oozes. They've never done that before, so they're fighting a bunch of puddings and such. And of course, I wasn't worried about them dying from this or anything like that. It was just kind of, hey, this is what was assaulting the caravans, and so they felt accomplished as, hey, we're going to solve the Free Myriad's problem with the caravans. So yeah, we'll go ahead and kill these. They dispatched them. Kiko, you know, he uses his 2 short swords. He gets, you know, as he's engaging in combat, his non-magical weapons actually get corroded by the oozes, was it black pudding that actually corrodes metal, and so his swords currently now have a -3. So yeah, Kiko's now using -3 weapons, mostly because he doesn't have much else. He's got a bow that he uses sometimes, but he prefers to just charge in with his weapons. So at some point he's gonna have to get they're gonna have to get him new swords, but for now he's perfectly happy. He doesn't care. He doesn't think too much. He kind of just charges in and does stuff, so it fits him. But they did dispatch the oozes, and they camped kind of knowing that, okay, now we've done this. And as they continue on, they come across this temple, this kind of ziggurat temple. It's starting to kind of sink in. And they're like, okay, that's cool. Let's go check that out. And as they're approaching, a couple people, they kind of see some figures kind of appear, just the natural contours in the march. They kind of just come over this little ridge. And they're like, are you adventurers? Are you here to help us? And they're like, well, who are you guys? We're a caravan, but we were attacked, and we had to kind of, you know, seek refuge in this temple. Are you guys here to rescue us? And they're like, well, we just took out a couple oozes. They're like, oh, perfect. Those just attacked us. Thank you so much. Come on. Well, come with us. We've got, you know, it's dry up here. We'll feed you guys. You guys must be tired. Please come with us. You know, thank you so much. And thank you for taking care of those oozes. And the players are like, oh, awesome. You know, NPCs, they're going to reward us. Sweet. So they go into this temple, and sure enough, there's a small crowd, maybe about a dozen or so. They're all like wearing kind of hoods and like, you know, robes and stuff like that. Trying to kind of like, you know, kind of cover themselves up. And they've got a table, and they're like, hey, please come and eat. They prepare a feast for them. They start talking, and about 10 minutes in, I say, everyone roll Constitution saves. And they're like, wait, what is going on here? And they roll, and most of them do pretty well. But I believe it was Elmoria and Osborne, if I'm recalling correctly. And again, it's been a while since my memories. But the point is, a couple of them failed their Constitution saves, and I said, okay, you're not poisoned. You know, get disadvantage on all your checks. And you're like, oh crap, what is going on here? Danny's like, I roll perception. He rolls perception. He kind of looks looking beneath the hoods, and he realizes they're very reptilian. And he's like, I think I've got an idea of what's going on here. And he's like, okay, I'm going to roll history to see if I know. And I'm like, all right, go ahead. He rolls his history, and he has good history. And the guy never seems to do bad on history for whatever reason. And he's like, is this what I think it is? I said, probably. Go ahead, say what it is. He's like, it's Yuan-Ti. And I was like, yep. Yuan-Ti are these kind of half snake, half human creatures, and they come in varying forms. Some of them are basically humans with a snake head. Others are snakes with arms. It's very there's varying degrees of the snake to human ratio. But they attack, and immediately several of these cloaked figures throw off the robes, revealing themselves as Danny has just called out, "It's UNT!" Basically like, well, the jig is up, so they throw off the robes and it's initiative. And they've got about 4 or 5 UNT attacking them right there, plus they've got about another 8 or so on either sides of the room, basically peppering them with darts and with arrows and such, all of which are poisoned, so the players are constantly having to make constitution saves against not only being poisoned by some of the more powerful attacks, but also taking just poison damage. So it was pretty rough. I believe Osborne went down. Someone went down. They had to revive them at the end. But they did dispatch them. They're kind of like, okay. Whew, never trust hooded figures again. They decided we're just going to bed down here. We're weakened. We're just going to rest here like they said we could. So we're going to, now we've killed them all. We're just going to rest. They go through the temple real fast. Make sure, okay, yes, we did kill them all. And they had. And they found some treasure. They found a bunch of money. They found a couple other various items that they're like, okay, we don't know what this is, but cool. They kind of hang on to it. And yeah, and then they said, okay, we're going to rest here. And that was where I'm going to kind of close up. Again, these recap videos, these next couple of videos, are basically just me talking about 2 or 3 sessions at a time, mostly to kind of just catch up. This was where we closed the 1 session, and so I felt that was perfect. This will be a good stopping point there. They knew they were getting close to the plane of Earth because they've been traveling for a little while, and so it was a fairly good resting point because they knew, all right, we're done with the plane of water, on to the plane of Earth, and they're ready to go home already. They're ready to go back to the material plane at this point, and they know they've still got a long trek to go. So thank you guys for sticking with us. We'll try and get one of these out about every week or so. I'm still looking for some other stuff to maybe talk about being a DM. And as always, stay cool.